How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Brad, the DC Universe Geek, and if you're somebody who is a fan of Todd McFarlane's DC Multiverse action figure line, well, if you haven't heard already, there's been a fantastic-looking Batcycle based off of the Batcycle from the current going series of Dark Knight's Death Metal. The Batcycle has a bat skeleton motif and is really freaking cool. It should be on the cover of a heavy metal magazine or possibly like a Meatloaf album or something like that. It is really awesome. I love it so much, and I love what Todd does with the things that he chooses to do. There have been times when, yeah, maybe the articulation could be better in some figures, and there have been some scale issues. That's also been a bit of a problem. But in general, I feel like he has done a very good job with what he has tried to do. I haven't been that interested in the animated figures, but in general. And hey, what I'm not interested in doesn't mean it's not good, it just means I wasn't interested in it. So that's something that you should definitely be keeping your eyes out for. As far as I understand, it's supposed to be coming out around January 2021. That's the idea, but who knows? There's always delays, but that's the idea at this point. And being that he has done so many different Bat characters, that being White Knight, Curse of the White Knight, Arkham, he's got the basic Batman figure from current continuity from Detective Comics 1000. He's also got the Batman figures from Dark Knight's Metal and Dark Knight's Death Metal. He's really heavily focused on Batman. It makes sense that he would make this particular Batcycle to complete that Dark Knight's Metal / Death Metal theme. And yes, as far as I understand, he does have a license to do all of the Death Metal characters as well. So we'll have those to look forward to in the future. I'm sure they're all going to be fantastic, and I love his work. Absolutely. Big cheerleader for his stuff as someone who owns so much of it. Though not perfect, in many ways they are light years above the Mattel Multiverse and the DC Universe Classics, and before that, even the DC Superheroes. The quality of these figures is absolutely worth the price. That being said, I have been thinking about McFarlane having the DC license, and I've got some very specific thoughts about it. I'll share those with you, though, after I share this video with you. It's basically Todd McFarlane talking about and showing his DC Multiverse figures for DC Fandome. Here, let's show that clip, and I'll watch it with you, and I'll interject with commentary, and then we'll finish off.
Hey everybody, this is Todd McFarlane, founder of McFarlane Toys. And today we're going to talk about the DC Multiverse figures and what's our process of going through it. Look, at the very beginning, there's only one thing that I ever want out of any of the toys. It's just got to be cool looking.
I've said that before. They've just got to be cool looking. I say it all the time. He wants them to look cool. And that's his number one reason for the choices that he makes.
So we start from there and we work everything down from that one key word, because if it doesn't look good, then I don't know that you really want to go out there and hunt for it and buy it and put it into your collection. The second thing, once we get past the cool factor, is what characters are we going to do and what are they going to look like? Here's why I say that. Here's some of the examples of some of the figures we got that are either out or coming out here pretty soon. We want them to have a different feel. We don't want every single one of them to feel like they're the same. The silhouette's the same and everything else.
Yeah, and he is doing that well. All the figures really don't all just seem the same. So he's definitely got that going for him. However, you'll note that's like 95% Bat characters on his table there.
We want to have tall, skinny ones. Let's say here, like Dawnbreaker, and then we've got skinny guy here, so we've got obviously the Batman Who Laughs that looks good, but then you want the big guys, right? So we go to the other extreme. We're going to want the big ones like the Devastator. Here's Asbat. He's going to be thick. You can see how much space that the Devastator takes.
The Devastator does take up a lot of space, but I want you to take into account that he seems just a little bit too short, and people have said that. But he does seem to be just possibly a butt hair too short in comparison to how he looks in the source material.
His package. And so what we're trying to do is make it so that there's literally a silhouette of each one of them. Some tall, some small, some wide, some big. Obviously the females are going to be a little bit skinnier. And then you have them, when you got them all set up here, that it feels like 20 different people. And not just one mold that somebody put in and we swapped heads or something like that. So some of it.
which is what gives them, in my opinion, a whole lot more value than the previous license holder, Mattel. I love Mattel's Multiverse and DC Universe Classics, but the fact that each of these characters has their own unique sculpted detail that is, I mean, even one of the basic figures from McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse line, that being the Batman or the Superman, the proportions of the Batman are definitely wonky, but the point is there is infinitely more sculpted detail that has been put into these figures than almost anything that we saw from Mattel. I mean, there was always outliers, things that stood out from Mattel, like Mr. Freeze or Deathstroke, or I'm just going to look up on my shelf. Killer Croc was one that saw a lot of sculpting, the Anti-Monitor. I mean, there were always figures that saw a ton of sculpting, but a lot of others didn't. And that was Mattel's way of putting out a lot of figures and saving money on not having to tool all kinds of new parts. Todd seems to be more concerned with every single one looking completely unique. So I definitely got to hand it to him there.
You're looking for themes. Let's say if we look over here, this is sort of the White Knight one. It's sort of fun to actually have the Joker, which we do lots and lots of Jokers. You see him in the comic book, but from the neck down, this isn't his classic look. So it's a strange and odd, interesting.
Pausing again. You know what they should have done really with the Joker though from White Knight? They probably should have put him in that Joker, the white T-shirt with the bat symbol on it and the suspenders. That probably would have been a better look than his GTO. Although, on the other hand, I mean, having him in the GTO outfit means that you really can't army build with him by just swapping different heads onto the body. So I can understand why a lot of people would like it, but I would have rather just seen Joker in that really cool looking T-shirt.
Odd, interesting look that we get to see of the Joker relative to what you're used to seeing, like him in the video game, right here. This Joker and this Batman is based on the video game, so you're going to start to see a couple different looks of Batman. You're going to get some of the TV, the movie looks, you're going to get the video look, you're going to get the comic book looks, and then within the comic books, there is no end to what we can do. So you can have everything from cool, broad-shouldered, as
all Batman.
Here. You can have Murder Machine right here, just looks good, looks like an NFL player. He's cool. And then obviously you can get the stylized look of Batman. So if you have Batman as a collection, you can get this one and this one and this one and don't feel like you've ever repeated yourself. Now, what's the process, how we go?
Okay, but to that point about having this one and this one and this one, there's people that collect a lot more than just Batman. You know, I think a lot of really big DC fans, true DC fans, like more than just Batman. You know, I feel like people that just like Batman and just Batman characters, they're kind of, you know, their own subsector of DC fan, because there's nothing wrong with that, but I feel like the people that are the hardcore DC fans love Batman, sure, but they also love, you know, many other characters, and the DC universe to many of us, to most of us, isn't just about Batman. It doesn't just center around Batman. And I know you could say, well, you're a big Superman fan, and it doesn't just center around Superman, and I would agree with you. It doesn't just center around Superman.
The process, how we go to it? Well, first off, we just start sculpting and make sure it looks good. And once we make sure that it looks good, we then output it. So here's Grim Knight. And you're going to see here, and one of the reasons that we want to output it is we want to see whether all the detail...
Very cool that he's showing this, by the way.
...detail is sharp enough, and whether all the pieces are going to fit properly. You can see there's very little articulation on it when we output it, and eventually we're going to have to end up cutting it.
Shut up, I know what a lot of you are saying. There's also very little articulation on it after you cut it. I can hear some of you saying that in the comment section.
And then we also want to put them next to other outputs to make sure we're getting what I was saying, which is...
See, and that would have been their time right there to make sure that the scale was better. And I feel like width, yes, that is the right size for him, but he should have been taller. I feel like he should have been taller. I feel like if that is when the crapping of the bed happened, I feel like.
The variety in shapes and sizes. Some big, some tall. Here is another one here, right? We got Red Death standing next to him. But again, you can see that those guys are slightly different. And then we've got one last thing. We tried to use as much as possible the color. I mean, Batman's colors for the most part are going to be pretty subdued and pretty dark. He's the creature of the night.
Yeah.
But once you start getting into the greens and the yellows and the reds, and you got Superman's pretty bright. Obviously, the Joker's flamboyant.
The blue boy.
There are other characters. Harley Quinn, she's pretty colorful. You get into some of the sort of animated looks that we do. These have a tendency to become a little bit bright. And then even if they are, you got Azrael, you know, his red stands out.
Fantastic figure.
Than, let's say, Murder Machine. Then one of the other things we get is from the factory, we get our first working prototype. This basically shows us whether the detail is good and whether the pieces are all moving. So they look like this. So here's a couple of them, right? And they just take whatever plastics in front of them. I've had some that are pretty psychedelic over the years. So here's a Batman who laughs. You can see they use like black and light blue and white and some khaki green on here. This essentially is this figure, unpainted, right?
Okay, just to hang on here. I've got to tell you, I am definitely surprised that more of these these McFarlane Multiverse paint masters or these prototypes unpainted haven't shown up online on eBay yet, because the Mattel ones, they did show up online pretty quickly. Actually, a lot of theirs showed up online fairly quickly. It'd be interesting to see if these show up on eBay in the coming months.
So it doesn't look that impressive, but what it is for us is to make sure that the joints are working, that we can spin it around, that it's going to do all the toy things that you guys are looking for, and that the joints are sitting in the right spot so that we sit there. Here's a bigger example here. Obviously our, what I call Batman in armor here. You know,
Hellbat.
The pieces are
Hellbat,
going to move
Todd.
here, that all this feels good, and that all the pieces are going to go, and we get the dates from the factories when they're coming. And when all that's done, then we send off our paint samples, and then they paint it, and they send us the first paint mock-ups of it, and it all looks good. And then when we sign off on all of it, we go into production, we put them in the package, obviously, you guys get to go and buy it, and then the ultimate is, if you guys buy a bunch of them, no one figure really is sort of the coolest. To me, what is always great about collecting is that the whole is always better than the parts, and then you get the DC universe.
Nope. You get the Batman universe. What he's just gone like this with his arms in front of, that's not the DC universe. That's very much the Bat universe, not the DC universe. I mean, technically Dark Knight's Metal and Death Metal are like, you know, it's not just a Batman story, but they're all Bat-centric characters. I mean, we know that, right? I mean, so no, you don't get the DC universe. Take the Flash out of that picture and Superman and Cyborg and what have you got? It's all Bat characters on that table. All of them.
It's animation, whether it's TV, whether it's movie, whether it's the metals, it doesn't matter. It's just all cool DC multiverse product that ends up looking good. And so you can end up with a display just like I have here if you basically go out and get as many as we have today. That's the process.
Bye.
We've got dozens more coming.
Dozens more Bat characters coming.
One last thing. We also get these orange ones that are our very first ones to make sure that our detail held up. And there are orange ones before we actually start going into it.
Now this is cool because this is the Drowned. This is one that a lot of people were asking about because Dark Knight's Metal and then Dark Knight's Death Metal have a lot of characters. And you'll notice here that you've got so many characters from Dark Knight's Metal, and people are saying, well, what about the Drowned? When are they going to make her? Are they not making her because she's a female or whatever? Well, here we go.
Going into a true prototype, and here's a first look at the Drowned.
What do you think? You know what? I am stoked that they are going to make her because you need to finish off the characters, right? You can't, if they made all the dudes and didn't make her and it was just a big fat sausage fest, I'd feel like they really, would have missed an opportunity with that one.
And all the cool detail on her, if we get up close, you're going to see that she's got a ton of great detail. So there's a sneak peek. Hope you enjoyed.
Looks good.
Have a good one.
So there you have it. Todd McFarlane clearly has a massive focus on Bat characters and on the Bat family because he feels that they are cool. And he's right. I mean, this is the creator of Spawn, the demon superhero, and Spawn is cool. His take on Spider-Man was cool. His take on Batman is cool. And he's right that Batman is cool. He's right that Dark Knight's metal is cool. And yes, they do look cool up on your shelf. All of that he is absolutely correct about. However, as a DC fan, I definitely absolutely feel like he's neglecting the rest of the DC universe in his focus of just Bat characters. A lot of us were so stoked that Todd McFarlane got the DC license because we knew that he would do fantastic products. We knew they would look great. We knew that they would have a very reasonable range of articulation. And we figured that he would, you know, do many characters that were not just Bat related. And then wave after wave got revealed, and it was a Bat wave, and then another pretty much a Bat wave, and then a Bat wave. And so because of this, hope began to sink, and then sink, and then sink even a little bit further at the idea that he would begin to pay attention to the rest of the DC universe. At this point, he hasn't showed them much love. He's made the Flash, but I think at this point the Flash was probably never really going to be just a standalone figure. I think that it was probably always maybe intended he would be part of a 2-pack with the Red Death, and all they've done is sculpt him a new head for his individual figure. But take the Flash out of the picture, take Superman out of the picture, and you're left with a very Batman-esque comic universe, right? Not counting the animated figures, we really are dealing with Bat characters here. You might as well call it the DC Batman multiverse. So at this point, I'm going to renege on something that I said before. In the past, I have said I don't want Hasbro to have the DC license. And it wasn't because I didn't think Hasbro would do a bad job. I knew Hasbro would do a good job. I know the Marvel Legends are fire, that they're just spitting out some of the best adult collectible figures that we've seen in a long time for a very reasonable price point. I just didn't want Hasbro to have a monopoly on the superhero action figure licenses. I wanted another company to have them because competition is good, and it causes each of the companies to up their game. I figured that that was the right way to do things. But seeing that Todd is completely neglecting the rest of the DC universe, I would love to see Hasbro have a basic DC license where they can do all of the characters in their current continuity or in their classic suits just in the 6-inch scale. So we can leave Todd McFarlane to do his more out there 7-inch scale Bat characters, and then allow Hasbro to come in and make the Aquaman and the Martian Manhunter and Green Arrow and show some love to the rest of the DC universe. Because a lot of us were so excited that Todd got the license, figuring he would do some amazing things with the DC universe, and he really just hasn't focused on them. So allow someone else to focus on them. It would be really cool if we could see the DC license cut up a little bit so that we could see what someone else would produce. Because at this point, like I said, there's not much hope that Todd is going to pay attention to the rest of the DC universe at large. Anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Hopefully you found this video to be an enjoyable waste of time, and I will see you in the next one. Toodaloo!